Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the interactive live stream that I do a couple of times every week. It's primarily, as the name implies, an interactive live stream. So if you are seeing my face on whatever device you're watching this on, or a PC, or whatever your pleasure is, you should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face. Get in the chat. If you are a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering about, what you're struggling with, or just give me your 2 cents on what we're talking about. And I will do my best to help you out. That's the whole point of this. And the topic today, this is episode number 109 of Honest HR Nitrous. Our topic today is job search hacks for today's labor market. So if you are looking for a job, you're between jobs, or anything like that, you're wondering about job interviews, job applications, networking, where to discover jobs, and anything to do with careers, really, that's what we're here to talk about. As always, a shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members, right there. You guys are awesome. Membership has its privileges. And also to my Patreons and to my super thanks donors. Those are always nice to get. And to my viewers and participants. That's you guys. Thank you for being here. So let's get down to it. I am here purely to answer your questions. I don't have any real agenda of what to talk about. I'm just here to get into it with you guys. Anything to do with jobs. And there are 9 people here. Guy Incognito is here, says, starting a 3-month job next week, but still think it's helpful to follow your streams. Wow, well, thank you very much, Guy Incognito. That's high praise, and I appreciate that. So it's a 3-month job, so it's a contract job, I'm assuming. Those are good. If that's what it is, while you're there, make sure that you are as friendly and accommodating as possible to all the people you work with. And you never know, these can sometimes turn into permanent positions. That's a relatively common thing. Speaking from experience, when you're hiring somebody, not through networking, but just you've posted the job. And so you're essentially getting strangers, you're getting members of the public. You really don't know who you're getting. You can do job interviews and background checks and stuff. But they don't really tell you who you're getting. So what some organizations do is they say, like, okay, it's a temporary position. It's like, just for a couple of months or whatever. And that really gives them a probationary period to see who you are. And unbeknownst to you, they really want to hire a permanent person. But this is their way of sort of vetting people, to give them an out, if it's not working out, or it's, the candidate wasn't who they were expecting. But it allows them to take them on board if everything's going really smoothly. So you never really know. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're doing this 3-month position, and you never know where it could lead. And wouldn't it be great if at the end of that 3 months, even if it does come to an end, you could walk out of there with references, with letters of recommendation. And while you're on the inside, you could take advantage of networking opportunities, go talk to the boss, talk to the boss's boss, things like this, right? Because while you're on the inside, there's a lot of opportunities there. So always keep that stuff in mind too. Yeah, get in the chat. There are 7 people here. Let me know if you have any questions about job search, that kind of thing. Jimmy says, currently looking for a job, learning a lot from your streams. Well, thanks, Jimmy. If you have any questions about anything, I'll be happy to get into it with you. One of the reasons I do these also is to understand what people are wondering about, like where, what are the questions or the situations that are pertinent for you? Like, what are you wondering about? What are you confused by, or what are you seeing that, you don't fully understand, or you don't know how to do? That's kind of also what I'm trying to get out of this, So So if you have any of that stuff, share it with me, and I'll see if I can be of some use. Yeah, while we're waiting for more questions, check out my courses, especially this one. If you are looking for a job, you're between jobs, and you're just confused as to how the posted job market works, applying for jobs that are posted publicly, things like fake jobs, things like ghosting, things like, using AI to customize your applications, your resumes and your cover letters, and how all that stuff works, and, what recruiters think, like what their perspective is on everything, how they are judging what you have presented them with and stuff like that. If you're wondering that stuff, or you're also wondering about the hidden job market where 80% of the jobs are, that's where 80% of people get hired, not in the posted job market. These are jobs that are not posted publicly. This is all, if that's all a mystery to you, you don't know how you could get those jobs, where are they, who do you talk to, where do you find them, how do you put yourself up for them? If that's what you're wondering, check out that course. I lay it all down in there with templates and processes, and I lay out all the concepts and all this kind of thing. So if that's what you're looking for, that's where you can find it right there. The links are in the description box under this live stream. And while we're waiting for more questions to come through in the chat, also, if you are looking to climb the ladder or you're looking to improve your communication skills, check out that course right there, Write Like a Professional. Not the best title for a course, but because, it is about writing, but it's mainly about communication skills. The communication skills you need to be seen as a contender to move upwards and be, especially a manager, into a management position. But it can open doors for you in terms of like building a lot of personal relationships with people where people like you and people want to hire you. So, if that's what you're into, check that out. That's how to get above average communication skills, which are necessary a lot of time to being promoted upwards into positions of greater responsibility. That's how that works. So check those out. Let's talk about job search hacks for today's labor market. So, increasingly, it's interesting because the thing that has been done for several decades, that standard way of hiring, is increasingly morphing, is one. And also, it's not just morphing, it's not just changing, it's becoming less effective. And there's several factors that are pushing it in that direction. So we're going to talk about those. Jimmy says, how can I use ChatGPT in writing my resume? Excellent question. Okay, let's see. So here's what I would say, okay? I unfortunately can't actually do this for you, but I can do the next best thing, which is tell you and show you exactly what to do. So I assume you have a resume, right? If you have a resume, what I'd highly recommend is that you create a sort of master version of your resume. It would have anything on there that you could ever possibly want to put on there for the jobs that you would apply for, right? A lot of us, we have a lot of things that we could put on a resume. All our little accomplishments, all our duties, like for every job we've had, right? Things like that. And, other things like, for example, you could put like summary sections where, you could call them various things, but it's basically a summary of, the highlights of your resume. You might want to put that right up front, up the top on the first page of your resume. Things like this. There's a lot of things you can put on your resume. So create a master version of your resume, okay? And then if that's like in a Word document or Google, what do you call it? Like Google Sheets, whatever the Google document version equivalent is, some kind of a word processing thing. You copy the entire body of your resume, okay? So you just select the whole thing. If it's like 3 pages long or whatever, say Control-C, copy. Sorry, subliminal slip there, copy. And then you go here in ChatGPT into the prompt, and then you say paste, Control-V. So you basically say, here is my resume. And then you open the quotes, right? And then you paste in the entire text of your resume. So that would go into this box right here, okay? And then you put close quotes after it, right? I'm going to make this bigger. So that's what you say. And it says, okay, right? And then if you're applying for a job that's a posted job, okay, online, you go to the website with the job posting on it, and you select the entire job posting, okay? So you drag, your cursor, and kind of like this, right? I select the whole thing, right? Or I say Control A, and that selects it, and I say Control C to copy it, right? And then I say Control V to paste it in there, right? Okay. So then you say, here is the job I'm applying for, and then you open the quotes, and then you paste in the entire job posting, okay? And then close quotes. And it says, okay. So it's got your resume, and then it's got the job you want to apply for, right? And then you could say, please create for me a custom version of my resume that's optimized to apply for this job. And then you say enter, and then it goes and it'll create the text of, your thing. Maybe, I could even demonstrate by create me a sample version of a job posting or a sample resume. Maybe in the future I'll do that. But anyway, so that's what you do. And then so what it's done is it's taken your resume, your master version of your resume, okay? And it's looked at the job posting, and it's created a custom version of your resume that, you could give it more specific instructions. You could tell it how you want it done, right? But if you just say, create a version of my resume that's optimized for this job, presumably what it's going to do is it's going to pull out the stuff from your resume that reflects the things that the job posting said they were looking for, right? So if they say we're looking for 5 years experience in, digging holes in the ground, whatever, and among your various accomplishments or duties, you've said, I dug holes in the ground, and that was at a job that you worked for 7 years, right? So it will pull that out, and it will feature that prominently on your resume. It'll also use the same lingo. So instead of saying dig holes in the ground, they say you are an excavation expert or something like that. We're looking for someone who's got 5 years in excavating, right? ChatGPT or whatever AI tool of your choosing will create a version of your resume where it says you have 7 years with excavation experience, and here's the details, right? And that's featured prominently on your resume. So if a human reads your resume, chances are they will see that. It'll be very upfront and obvious, right? So it's optimized for that job. Of the things you have on your resume that have nothing to do with this job that you gave it the posting, it'll probably not even include those, right? Because they kind of dilute, the things you have that match up. You want everything that you put on your resume to essentially match up with what they're looking for. Then you appear like the perfect fit, right? Okay, so anyway, that's the basic idea. So then when it spits out the text, right, as an output, okay? I can say, for example, okay, just create me a sample resume, text for a sample resume. Okay, so just to give you some kind of output here so I can do stuff with it. So here, okay, it even knows my name, excellent. So blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's like a made up resume about me, which is kind of interesting. See what I've done. Right, so you take the whole thing and then you paste that, like Control C, you paste that into a Word document or whatever, Google Doc, whatever, and there you go. That's pretty much how you create a custom resume. That's the very simple version. You can give it more specific instructions to tweak it the way you would like. Like if there's specific things you want done a certain way, you can do that. And then this instruction you give it with all the little tweaks, you can save that, and then you could use it for other jobs that you're applying to customize it in the way that you want, right? So that's the idea. So like, bam, there you create a custom version of your resume that's optimized for that job, and that's what you use to apply to that job. Exactly the same thing with a cover letter. Create me a cover letter. This kind of thing. Can you create me a sample cover letter that complements this resume that includes points that might be relevant that are not included already in the resume? Like, I don't know, some whatever cover letter type thing you're doing. Okay, so here's a sample cover letter. Okay, and it says, "Dear hiring manager." So if you had the exact job posting in there, that would all be tailored, right? Okay, so it would be interesting reading on what I've supposedly done. That would be kind of fun. But there's no time now. So there you go. So there's your sample cover letter. You copy that, paste it, and that if they want a cover letter with certain specific things that they've said, bam, there you go. Now, that's if you let this thing do the entire thing itself, right? Some people probably won't want to do that. They'll want to at the very least, you should proofread it. But, you might want to actually tweak things yourself, however you want to do it. But using this, you can apply to many jobs in a day, if that's what you want to do, many posted jobs. But yet, it's a custom application each time, right? And in this day and age, you kind of have to do that to get responses. It's very tough to get responses when you're not doing this kind of thing. Okay, that's one of the big changes that's come in the last few years. Okay, get in the chat. This is a Q&A. There are 12 people here. Thank you for being here. But I'm here to answer your questions, so keep the questions rolling in, and then I'll have stuff to say. I'm just curious to read some of this this thing. So I told it, I want you to write me a cover letter that includes things that are relevant, but not necessarily addressed in the resume. So let's see here. Expressing my interest. Okay, I've got more than 10 years, but that's interesting. I believe my unique combination of strategic insight, blah, blah, blah. I've succeeded, led organizations. Cornerstone of my career. Initiatives. Yeah, so interesting stuff. Jimmy says, thank you very much. You're welcome, Jimmy. Hopefully that was useful. But yeah, I mean, are these things the be-all, end-all? No, they're not, but they're pretty useful for specific applications, definitely. In addition to leadership, I'm deeply committed to coaching and developing talent, blah, blah, blah. You see, there's no standard way of writing a cover letter. Cover letters are like a relic from the days when, we used to apply for jobs by printing off a resume, putting it in an envelope, and mailing it off like through snail mail, to somebody. So they would get an envelope that was like addressed to the hiring manager or the recruiter or whoever, and they'd open this envelope and there'd be a resume inside, but they wouldn't know, like, what's the deal with this, right? So you'd have a cover letter saying, okay, please find enclosed my resume. I'm applying for this job, and I'm sending my resume to you because, you're the contact person on the listing I saw. And just some very quick highlights. You say you're looking for this. Well, I have this. So that's why I thought, I might be a contender. If you should need anything else, here's my information. Have a great day. Something like that. That was like the cover letter. That was the purpose for it. So the person receiving the letter receiving the envelope says, oh, okay, I know what this is all about now. So I know what job this is for and, all that kind of stuff. Right. So that was the purpose of it. In this day and age, when you fill out like an application for a job online, you don't need that. The person already knows what job it's for, and why this person is applying, So as a result, some employers don't require cover letters. Others require them, but, it's really like a matter of opinion what should be in there, right? Some people require you to have it almost like another version of your resume, but just in paragraph form, going over the same content. Other people, they want it like essentially a letter where it complements your resume. So it doesn't repeat the stuff on your resume. It gives you extra things like what are your ambitions and, what are your soft skills and, like this sort of thing. What sort of style, like if it's a management thing, like what management style do you have, or, what area of work do you specialize in? Things like this, right? So there's really no standard for that kind of thing. Thank you to the people that are participating, by the way. It's because of you that I'm here, so that's great. Swift Sloth, there's a name, says, hey, I incorporated a few of your tips for interviews and I got an offer for a great job last week. Thank you so much. You're absolutely welcome, Swift Sloth. Thank you for the feedback. We've had several people say a similar thing so far today. That's quite gratifying, and it's great to hear that you guys are doing well. So congratulations to Swift Sloth. Yeah. I feel that schools don't really prepare people properly for job search in general. And on top of that, like not for interviews. Maybe like if you're getting a job at McDonald's or something, like some really low end thing, which you could argue might be appropriate for high school, but I think that's setting the bar a bit low. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of people in approaching the end of high school, like, are certainly capable of a lot more. You know what I mean? And, it's hard to learn all of these concepts like the hard way, like through trial and error. It takes a lot of time and a lot of pain to learn all these lessons. It would be really nice if people sort of proactively prepared young people for this stuff, so you didn't come out of high school totally clueless about this, not understanding how jobs work, or what a job interview is really about, and what's the perspective of the person on the other side of the table. I don't know, they kind of get that, but it's done in a very basic, poor way, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about that, but and then you get a lot of people in their 20s and 30s and 40s that are like just learning this stuff for the first time. It's because maybe you haven't had to deal with it that much. You know what I mean? But it's doing people a real disservice. Like the biggest thing I think that's holding a lot of people back is sort of ignorance about the hidden job market. Like that's the number one thing. For a start, we've got the posted job market that has something like 20% of the jobs in it, but yet something like 80% of all job seekers are looking there. So 80% of the job seekers are competing for those 20% of the jobs. So that's, for a start, that's like something that's causing a lot of issues. Mustafa is here, says, thank you very much, Coach. You're welcome, Mustafa. Thank you for being here. I'm here to answer your questions, so send me some questions. I'm just here sort of babbling. I'd much rather be addressing something you guys bring up, so let me know. That's the single biggest thing that I think is holding people back, is not finding out about the hidden job market. And then when people hear about it, there's all this like confusion and misinformation about it. They don't really, they don't get reliable information about it. There's the thing, part of the problem is that you've got a lot of people in this space that kind of have an agenda. They have an incentive to either have you not look there, or, it's a conflict of interest, because like a lot of recruiters, for example, they don't operate in the hidden job market. They deal with posted jobs. That's what recruiters deal with. So it's a little bit of a conflict for for recruiters to sort of direct you to the hidden job market, because they're saying like, well, it's like basically saying, you don't need us. We're not necessary. You're absolutely right. You shouldn't go through us. Don't listen to us. Don't deal with us. Just go around us, and succeed, right? There's a bit of a conflict of interest for recruiters to say that openly, in my opinion. I'm a bit different because I'm talking about job search, but I'm not a recruiter. I'm an ex-CEO. I've been a hiring manager for many years, and I've hired recruiters, and then I've just hired people directly myself, without going through a recruiter. So, I have no agenda to tell everyone that, like, you have to go through a recruiter, which you don't. For a start, the last several jobs I've gotten in my life, I never went through a recruiter, because you don't need to. You know what I mean? So, I'm not necessarily knocking recruiters. I'm not saying that they're useless or something, because they're not. They serve a specific purpose. But I know that there's a lot of conflict of interest when, people want to find out about the hidden job market. Who's the logical person to ask? They ask a recruiter. Unbeknownst to them, the recruiter has an incentive not to point you there, because that makes the recruiter irrelevant, So that's the single biggest thing I wish I could the message I could get out to the world for job seekers. There's a lot of people that are suffering because they don't have this knowledge, Swift Slot says, I think it's because a lot of people are raised to be honest, but the job interview process is super performative. Can you highlight more of the hidden jobs? It's my first time here. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, listen, if you really want to get a good overview, I have a video that's linked in the description box below. It's called Hidden Job Market. But since you're here, let me show you like just the absolute basics here. Okay, so I'm in ChatGPT. Okay, I just have this up on the screen, and the primary purpose I do this is twofold. One, to familiarize people with ChatGPT if you've never used it before, and number two, to show you that this isn't just my opinion; it's coming from me. This is not coming from me. This is a thing. Okay, so here. Okay, so for someone who's never heard of the hidden job market, okay, I'd like to understand the hidden job market. Now, let's start off by saying, of all the jobs that are available out there that I could get, how many of them are posted and how many of them are not? Okay, so let's just start with this. Okay, so that's my question. Okay. So here we go. So the hidden job market refers to the large portion of job opportunities that are never advertised publicly. Okay, so these are jobs that are available right now that you could get, but they are not posted publicly on the internet. While it's difficult to give an exact number, the commonly cited statistic is that 80% of job openings are hidden, meaning they are not posted online or through traditional job boards. Okay, so all of what you see out there right now, all the jobs that you see when you look on Indeed or LinkedIn or company websites or anywhere else, ZipRecruiter, whatever, all of that's 20% of the jobs that are actually out there. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, this includes jobs that are filled through networking, referrals, internal promotions, or word of mouth. Okay. And just so you know, the reason why those jobs are not posted is because they don't need to be. Because you would post a job publicly and publicize it when you're trying to find candidates for it, right? The idea is that a lot of jobs, especially a lot of good jobs, they're not having any problems finding people that would want those jobs. The moment the manager mentions to their subordinates, oh, by the way, we're posting an open position to work in our group, just the workers hearing this will come back to them and say, hey, I've got a brother or a cousin or a former coworker that would be perfect for this. Shall I tell them to get in touch with you, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So you've already got people you know and trust staking their personal reputation with you to recommend someone. why would you say, like, if you were the boss, why would you say, no, I'm not interested in talking to them. I would rather interview complete strangers. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? These people could be axe murderers. They could be criminals. They could have like lied about every single thing on their resume. Like, you don't know, right? But you're saying, no, I don't want to go through a trusted recommendation from someone that I've worked with for years. Instead, I'm going to hire someone I don't know that could, like, it's a total stranger. It's a total crapshoot, right? So they don't need to publicize those jobs because they've already got, some good suggestions and recommendations for people to fill it, right? That's usually how that goes, right? Okay. Right. So 80% of jobs are hidden. The remaining 20% of jobs are those that are publicly posted, which we typically see on job boards, company websites, and through recruitment agencies, right? So recruiters deal with posted jobs. That's what they do. There might be, like, there's exceptions to everything, but as the general rule, like, they only deal with posted jobs. So this is why when you ask a recruiter about the hidden job market, often you don't get, like, full and complete information. They're not super encouraging, because they're essentially saying, like, you don't need me, I'm advising you not to go through me. Instead, I'm telling you, you can do it yourself without needing me. So it's a bit of a conflict. Okay, let's just wrap this up quickly. So why is the hidden job market important? Networking plays a huge role. Many employers prefer to hire candidates who have been referred or who have connections within the company. Okay. Now, if you know, I just want you to know before we go any further, if you know nobody, you can still get these quite easily. The way you do it, the simplest way of doing it is to reach out to the employers. You basically, the simplest possible form is to send a note to them, like on things like LinkedIn and stuff, saying, hey, I'm here. I do this. I solve this problem. If ever you're looking for someone who can do that for you, let me know, because I'd love to work for you. Right? That's the simplest possible form of that. And then all of a sudden, unbeknownst to you, this person that's a manager somewhere that you sent this to, they actually have a job that they're trying to fill, but they haven't posted it publicly, right? They maybe just thought of it. And then all of a sudden your message landed in their lap, right? And they go, hey, this person looks exactly like what I'm looking for. If I can just hire them and they work out, I can dispense with doing this crap and get back to my actual job, which is not filling a vacancy. I have an actual job. I'm the manager of an entire department. Running that department is my job. And quite frankly, this is a distraction, So that's how this stuff works. You can read more about it, and I encourage you to do so. Start with, like, AI tools like ChatGPT or even a Google search, and then go outward from there. Do your research. If you want to learn that stuff with me, check out that course I have in the description box under this live stream. I walk you through the entire thing and give you templates and processes and explain all the principles and how everything works. So I have that as an option if you're looking for that. Okay, let's get back to the chat here. Now, Swift Sloth said, I think it's because a lot of people are raised to be honest. But it's not a question of honesty, it's a question of sales. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. Yes, you do get salespeople that lie to try and make sales. You do see that, right? But that's not what sales is. Sales is the process of saying, like, listen, if you're looking for this, then you should consider this. Why? Because of this. And if that's what you are looking for, I can help set you up with the solution. It's up to you, But I'm trying to draw your attention to this. I'm trying to make a case for it. Nothing I'm saying is a lie. Nothing I'm doing is underhanded. It's just, if you're looking for this, I'm trying to promote it. I'd like to draw your attention to this and consider it. And if you are interested, I'm going to make a very persuasive case why this is the thing for you. That's sales, right? And then the fact that they're getting in front of you and drawing your attention to it, that's the huge part of it. So it's not a question of like, is it honest or is it dishonest? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like, are you getting the word out about what you can do for people? Or are you just hiding your head under a rock and they don't even know you exist? Like that's more of how to look at this. Because out there right now, there is somebody, a hiring manager, who's wanting to fill a position that you would be perfect for, right? The problem is that they don't know of your existence. Neither do you know of their existence. You're not connected, right? So the process of networking, either physically in real life, face-to-face, or online through social networking, and connecting online, that's what's going to connect both of you. They have a need for you. You have a need for them, right? And that's how things happen. Okay, so we talked about the hidden job market. I highly encourage, if you don't know about this, to learn about it. This is the kind of thing that I think they should teach people in school more, and they really don't. Teodoro says, hello, I'm sorry to be lost on this, but how do we find the secret job market? Okay, so you could call it different things. The name I use is hidden job market, okay? And I hopefully you were here like 5 minutes ago. I walked everyone through it, okay? And that's how you can start. I'm just using ChatGPT. The reason I'm doing this mainly is so you guys can see this isn't coming from me. This is not something I'm making up. It's a thing, and you can go and you can verify it yourself. And I encourage you to go out and verify it for yourself. First, start by like looking it up on, search engines and AI chatbots and things, and then go start probing this stuff. Like go and start sending messages to people and get on LinkedIn and get on Google Maps and find employers and then look inside organizations to the individuals and see like who's in charge of what department, and then like reach out to them and like stuff like this. This is how you learn this stuff yourself, by doing it. It can be very intimidating to some people if they're introverts like me in the beginning. But once you realize how simple it is to do and you kind of have an idea of what is appropriate to do and, that usually gets good results, it's really not intimidating at all. It's just like applying for jobs. You know how you send out applications? That's not intimidating. You're not bothering people by sending out applications, are you? You're not bothering a company. Neither are you bothering people doing this. This is perfectly appropriate. This is how the business world works. If you want to learn this stuff with me, like I said before, I put all of this into a course. Okay, so I walk you through the whole thing. So check out that course. There's a link in the description if you want to learn all that stuff with me. But either way, I would encourage you to go out and verify this. You don't need to take my word for anything, nor should you. Verify this stuff is there. It's hidden in plain sight. You may yourself have family members that have gotten jobs because they knew a friend of a friend or someone like that put in a good word for them, right? That's an example of the hidden job market. That job might not have been posted, but the company was looking and someone got the job, not by applying through the company website, but by talking to someone who talked to somebody who talked to the boss. And then the boss brought them in for an interview based on that. The point is you might have family members that can tell you stories like that. That's how they got hired. So that's an example of like the hidden job market if that job wasn't posted. So hopefully that somewhat helps, Theodoro. You're right at the start of a beautiful, useful journey if you choose to go through that door. And I encourage you. That can lead to career success. It can lead to fulfilling your ambition. It can lead to making a lot of money. Whatever your goals are, it can lead to a lot of great things. Swift Sloth says, so if I want to work at a Fortune 500 company, but I don't have any connections or know anybody working there, it's going to be nearly impossible to get that hidden job right. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. I, in fact, didn't I give an example of this 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, where I said, like, you send out a message, and the simplest possible message is to say, hello, my name is X. I do this. This is the problem I solve. If ever you're looking for someone who can do that for you, please let me know, because I would love to work for you. I know you guys do great work in this area. That's all. Have yourself a great day, right? And just as you would send, like hundreds of job applications out in a job search campaign, you would send hundreds of messages like this out. Now, most of those are going to fall on deaf ears. People are just not hiring someone exactly like you right now. They're just not looking right now, right? But statistically, some of them will be. Sometimes it'll be 10% of people that will be looking right now. Sometimes it'll be 1%. But the idea is, if you send hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these out, just like you send hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of job applications out, sooner or later, you do get a bite. You get several bites, actually. The response rate is actually higher doing this, much higher than it is for job applications right now. So anyway, I mean, that's the deal. Like the thing that I've been trying to emphasize is that you don't have to know a single solitary person to get a job like this. If nothing else, you could use one method that I've already kind of mentioned twice, called direct outreach, where you reach out to all the potential employers around you, and within those organizations, you go to the individuals that are in a position to be able to hire you, and you send them a note similar to the one I just gave twice. And that usually results in a lot of bites. People that say, hey, are you free for a phone call? Are you free for, you want to grab a coffee? There might be something here. We don't know yet, right? Swift Sloth, that feels the same as posting it publicly. No, other than making a good impression through the message. Listen, Swift Sloth, I can tell you're opposed to the idea. Maybe you're threatened by this. But like I've shown you, I'm not making this up. This is very real. Every job I've gotten in the last 20 years has been on the hidden job market. Go and investigate it. Instead of like making assumptions about it and saying, it'll never work. Actually, there's a lot of people that are happy that you have that attitude, or you seem to have that attitude, because that's good news for them, because there's less competition. That's even easier for them to get hired this way, right? If you're thinking it's not worth looking there, they're happy about it, It's up to you. Listen, I can point you through the door, but you have to walk through it. So maybe, and maybe you're just not ready, like maybe you're too young or something, and it takes a while to get used to these ideas. So, but it isn't this underhanded, slimy thing that requires all kinds of connections that you think it is. It doesn't. Theodoro says, thank you, sir. This has been very helpful. Well, good. Yeah. Like, learn about this stuff. It's to your advantage. And there are no gatekeepers. Like, that's the thing. You don't need me or a recruiter or anyone else. This is between you and the hiring manager, right? And the hiring manager is someone that you find on LinkedIn, if nothing else, right? It's between you and them. There are no gatekeepers, no intermediaries. There's no person telling you have to follow a certain procedure to talk to this other person. You don't have to go through them to do this. You are going outside any kind of organizational process or rule, because the reality is that in a free society, which we live in, you can talk to whoever you want. And they have the perfect right to not talk to you if they don't want to, but you have the perfect right to reach out to them. A lot of young people, for some reason, they graduate from like high school and stuff, and they think like, who am I to talk to that person there, And my question is, who do you have to be? Are you employable? Yeah, you are employable. Okay, then you have the perfect, then it makes sense for you to talk to them. Because it turns out that you just graduated with maybe like some kind of educational qualification. You have a certificate in this. You went to trade school. You are a fully qualified Red Seal carpenter or something. They're a site foreman. They are a builder. They own a small residential building company, whatever, right? They have the power to employ you. You are the type of person that they would directly supervise or they would have in their group, right? Who do you have to be to talk to them? You say, listen, I'm a fully qualified carpenter, got my Red Seal ticket. I can build whatever you need. I can certainly build houses in residential construction. If ever you're looking for another carpenter to join your team, let me know, because I know you guys do work in this area. I think it's fantastic. So if you're looking, I'm your guy. Let me know. Now if they're not hiring, they either don't respond or they say, thank you, no, right? Not right now. But if they are hiring for a carpenter right now, you fell right in their lap. You have a lot of advantages doing this because, first of all, you're signaling you're first of all signaling that you know of their company, right? That's kind of flattering and one would argue required, right? One of the requirements. You know of them. You're also signaling that you're enthusiastic about working for them. That's genuine. You're also demonstrating your initiative. You're demonstrating how professional you are. You're giving them a sample of your communication skills. And you're also giving them a sample of what it's like to interact with you. So if they hired you and they had to deal with you, this is kind of like a free sample of what it's like to deal with you, right? Is it awkward and just confusing? Or is it easy and productive? Right? That's another advantage this has. You're not talking about how good you are. You're demonstrating it. They're getting a free sample of your persuasion skills, your ability to persuade someone. You're making a pretty compelling case. I'm a fully qualified carpenter. I'd love to work for you. If ever you're looking, let me know. A lot of people be like, hey, I am looking for a carpenter. You just fell right in my lap. Makes sense to me. This is easy. And, you seem pretty self-aware and pretty easy to deal with. You haven't said anything weird or given off any red flags or weird vibes. That's more than the people that have sent in this stack of resumes, that have sent in applications, right? I haven't interacted with any of them. I don't know if they have terrible communication skills or not, or they're just creepy. I have no idea. But I know already that you have good communication skills and you're not creepy. So you already jump to the top of the pile, right? There's a lot of advantages in learning this stuff. You know what I mean? And quite frankly, a lot of employers, why would they go out of their way to find candidates when all they have to do is sit back and really good candidates come to them? That is also the reality. That's what nobody tells a lot of young people. Young people are, a lot of them are just sort of waiting their turn in line, putting their applications in, when a lot of employers aren't even having a line. They don't need a line. They've got people like coming to them constantly, so they're not posting jobs. VREP says, is it bad for the resume to be more than one page, which is the general tip? No, the general tip is not that a resume should be one page. What's typical is about a page and a half for most people, for most professionals, certainly. You can get a resume that's one page. There, for young people, sure. If you're in your 20s and you're just starting out, one page is appropriate. If you're just coming out of school, you don't have a ton of career experience, one page is perfectly fine. But it's not like the industry standard or a general kind of rule. Usually 1.5 page, two pages is more typical, right? 3 pages is possible, but it's on the long side. Usually you don't want to do a 3-page resume. Okay. but it's not bad. It's you can easily have it be a page and a half, and that's not an issue. Like just earlier in this chat, I said to Chat GPT, somewhere along the line, I said, just make me a sample resume, just so I have something to talk about here. I said, just create me a sample resume for a text. Now it created me this. That's more than a page. That's like a page and a half, right? Which is like a typical kind of size, right? Let's just ask this for fun. Okay, so for resumes, in terms of the resume length, I'm under the impression that about a page and a half is typical. Would you agree with that? Just interested to see what this thing says. Yes, I would generally agree with that. A resume 1 to 1.5 pages is typically considered ideal, especially with those less than 10. Yeah, exactly. For those less than 10 years of experience. For mid-career professional, a page and a half works well. For senior executives, then obviously you go longer. Okay. So yeah, that pretty much echoes what I said. 1 page is fine if you're just starting out. There are 15 people here. Get in the chat if you have a question about job search, interviews, resumes, careers, that kind of stuff, soft skills, networking, how to discover jobs, how to get the jobs, what people look for, that kind of thing. I went on my usual rant, which I've done many times before about the hidden job market, because I don't hear people talking a lot about it for how crucial it is. It's ironic how all the people that talk about job search, they're all interested parties. Either they're recruiters or they're staffing agencies. And the last thing these people want to do is tell you that you don't have to go through them, which is the reality. You can certainly choose to go through them if that's what you want to do, but you really don't have to. And in fact, most people don't. Okay. Dal's War, how do you say that? Dillis War says, I'm not getting calls nor resume getting shortlisted. I'm trying in tech sector. What to do? Any changes to do with current demand? Yes, as I'm sure you know, right now, tech is experiencing a little bit of a downturn. But then again, tech is like a huge kind of thing that incorporates many, many different industries and professions. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you a technician or are you a IT person, like a systems admin, or are you a developer? Are you an engineer or, like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? There's a lot of different things in tech. And, the thing is, kind of like the thing I just finished talking about like 2 minutes ago. God, excuse me. I do a lot of talking, and so that's the effect. I was just saying how, the hidden job market is a thing, and what a lot of companies actually do, what a lot of employers do, what most of them do, in fact, is that they don't really have to go out actively and do job search to fill their positions most of the time. Some choose to, especially like multinational corporations, like they choose to have very, very rigid hiring processes for people at the worker level, right? Not people higher up, but people at the worker level. Very, very rigid. Those are the jobs that are posted, right? But the way most people do it is they just sit back and they have really talented employees contact them. That's a very common thing. That's what the hidden job market is. So there, if you had to choose, if you're an employer and you had to choose, do I look at the people that contact me, or do I just post a job publicly and get strangers to apply? usually you'll take a look more closely at the people that contact you, right? They tend to be more self-aware and aware of what's going on in their industry. Also, you can tell that they are specifically interested in you by the fact that they reached out to you. You know what I mean? Instead of just looking at job postings where they apply to every job, no matter what it is and what company it's at, right? These people, they specifically came to you. You didn't have a job posted, but they said, I want to work for you, right? That's the candidate you're going to look at closer because they've already signaled their interest in you specifically. So that's a good start. Then, as I said before, they're not talking about how good they are. They're demonstrating how good they are. They're giving you a free sample of their communication skills, how professional they are, how good they are communicating. They're also showing you how persuasive they are. They're essentially trying to sell themselves. They're saying, hey, if ever you're looking for this, look no further. I'm your guy or I'm your person, whatever, right? For these reasons, right? So that's what usually you get in a downturn. You get a lot of like posted jobs dropping off, a decline in like official public job postings, but you still get people hiring, in the hidden job market. There's always going to be attrition. There's always going to be people let go for performance issues. So there's always going to be positions open, but they're not going to be actively spending money and effort to try and find candidates when there's a steady stream of candidates coming to them, right? So that's how I wanted to tie that into what I was just talking about a moment ago. So Dillswar says, I meant developer and AI and web developer. Okay, yeah, it doesn't really matter what it's a developer for. They're hiring in all industries to a certain degree all the time, right? The thing is, you're in competition against your peers. There are other people who are developers. There's not just you, and you're all competing for the same jobs, right? So you each want to do what's the most competitive. If you can get the opportunities before someone else is aware of the opportunity, that's a big advantage, right? If you're there's many ways you can apply for a job. There's many different vectors or whatever you call it. Some are more promising than others, right? So anyway, it basically comes back to the same thing. Learn about the hidden job market. There's so many advantages to this. This is how 80% of people get hired. It just makes sense for you to be looking there also, because that's where 80% of the jobs are. So if you're ignorant of that whole thing and you're not really pursuing those jobs, that's really limiting. You know what I mean? And in a downturn, when an industry takes a downturn, just so you understand, if the company is posting a job and they employ recruiters, either external recruiters or internal recruiters, that's expensive. You have to write job postings. You have to publicize them. You have to organize rounds and rounds of interviews with strangers. You have to do background checks. That's expensive. What a lot of hiring managers want to do is just fill the position without having to do that. And they can, and they do, when they're hiring on the hidden job market. The way that works is a candidate contacts them personally and says, hey, I'm here. I'm a first-class developer. I know you guys do work in this area. I'd love to work for you, right? The hiring manager didn't lift a finger to find that candidate. They didn't spend any money. They didn't have to have any meetings with recruiters where they had to agree on the job requirements or on the job description, and the hiring manager didn't have to approve a job posting before the recruiter can post it. And then the hiring manager didn't have to sit in round after round of job interviews with all these candidates, right? Just to see if they're suited for the job. You know what I mean? Instead, you contacted them. You know exactly who they are and what they do. And you made a case for them, for yourself. And so they get you without having to do all that work. And that's why they like that. It's cheaper, it's less work, and they tend to get better candidates anyway. So the single most important thing you can do in like a downturn or any other time that will increase your odds of getting hired is tuning into the hidden job market. Now, don't take my word for any of this. Go out and do your own research. You saw, hopefully, if you were here, you saw how I demonstrated this with ChatGPT earlier. Okay, this is not coming from me. This is coming from ChatGPT. You can verify this. Okay. Let's do it very briefly, just in case you're just joining us. Okay, what is the hidden job market, and how many of the jobs are actually there, and how would I go about getting those? Okay, this is just for people that are joining us now, just so you know what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, right? So that's what it is. It's all the opportunities that aren't advertised. 80% are hidden. Only 20% are posted. That alone is the reason why you should look there. You want to know what's going to increase your odds getting hired in IT, as an AI developer and a web developer. Well, trying to go after the other 80% of the jobs in that space is going to really help you, right? And in a downturn, more of them will be hidden than when the industry's on an upswing. It's when it's on an upswing that they have to post more, because now there's greater demand, right? So it's harder to find good people, right? So they have to look harder. So they post more and they go to great lengths. They spend more money. On a downturn, you have a smaller demand. You have less demand when there's like a large pool of candidates, but there's less demand, less jobs to fill. So that's where the employers can afford to sit back and just have the great candidates come to them, and they do. And those are the ones they hire usually, right? So anyway, not to sound like a total broken record just going on about this stuff, but that's what you can look in, and that will hopefully get you hired, especially during a downswing of the IT industry. But great question. There are 18 people here. We are just over the 1 hour mark. If you have any questions about job search, how to get hired, job interviews, resumes, cover letters, where to look, networking, all that kind of stuff, how to discover jobs, let me know. Let's talk about it. If you have any questions, something you're struggling with or wondering about, I'm here to help you out. Just as a reminder, while we're waiting for questions to roll in, check out that course. If you want to learn that stuff with me, I have a course. I don't do like career coaching. That's not what I do. It's not really worth my time, not to sound arrogant. But so what I did is I put, my learning into courses. So it's much better bang for the buck for everybody. For the price of like less than an hour of career coaching, you have like an entire course from me, all these topics covered, and then you can watch it over and over again if you wanted to. It's much more efficient. So that's what I do. If you do want career coaching, on Mondays I collaborate with another YouTuber, someone called Abby. She has a YouTube channel called Life Work Balance, and she's a recruiter. So if you're looking for career coaching, someone who's going to like work with you, help you work on your interviewing technique and help you create a great resume and all this kind of stuff, she does provide that. So check out her channel if that's what you're looking for. We answer questions together on Mondays. Every second Monday, we do a collaborative live stream. I think this coming Monday, we actually have one. So that's where you guys can send in questions, and then her and me are both live answering questions together. So we have different perspectives. She's a recruiter. I'm not a recruiter. I'm a hiring manager. So it's like we have a different sort of perspective on certain things. That's what makes it interesting. You get sort of our different perspectives there, if you're into that. VREP says, what is a good resume structure? I'm in computer science / informatics projects. higher than experience, if little. What? I'm in computer science informatics. Projects higher than experience, if little. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but usually the standard format is you have your name and you have like a sort of some kind of introduction or summary. I strongly recommend putting like a tagline. That's kind of like on LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn profile, you know what I'm talking about. It's like where you have your name and then right under your name, you have a tagline. That's like your title, who you are. So you could say like VREP student, or you could say VREP, like, AI developer expert, like that's who you are to the person, right? So I recommend like a tagline, and then you'd have some kind of summary or, I know what Abby recommends. She's the recruiter I mentioned a minute ago. She says, have a section called relevant professional skills. And it kind of summarizes like, the things that these people said they're looking for that you have. It just summarizes them right up front. Then you have like experience, the biggest section on your resume. That's where you go through your jobs you've had, career jobs, starting with your most recent and then going further into the past as you go down. And then afterwards, you have your education. Usually that's towards the end of your resume, education, right? And then, just any kind of volunteer or extra skills or contact information, that all comes at the end, right? So that's kind of the general format. So hopefully that's helpful, VREP. That's a good question. I mean, these days, the big challenge with resumes is having them read by a applicant tracking system, basically an AI filter that reads your resume and then ranks all the applicants they've received, if this is like for a posted job, based on how close of a match you are, right? So that's kind of, the big priority for resumes now, right? You can still have your resume and it goes to like a person, but if you're doing it on the hidden job market, when you're not dealing with ATS, if it's on the hidden job market, your resume is almost incidental. Like what matters is your pitch, or if you had any interaction with them, like you did an informational interview or you sent a message or something. That's really what's going to make or break you, is like the message. The resume is kind of like good to have as a reference thing, but it's really not the be all end all if you're doing stuff on the hidden job market. Tong says, sorry, Tong, I'll get to you in a second. VREP also says, I meant project section in the resume to be the first and then the experience section. Sorry. I've never heard of that. That doesn't mean much. Let's just check. I'll just do this. We can do this. Okay, so questions. So in a resume, if you are in the IT industry, especially or specifically, you're a developer or something, and you have experience developing various projects. Okay, you've also held down a few jobs in that industry. Now, when it comes to writing your resume, in terms of the format of the resume, should you have a project section up front and then have a separate dedicated experience section afterwards? Is that a common thing, or is that more exotic, or is that not the preferred format? Let's see what this thing says. I'm curious myself. It's almost like if you're, doing gig work and stuff, would you have like a section where you list all your gig work? Okay, it's becoming increasingly common to recommend to include a dedicated project. There you go. You see, I learned something on your resume, especially if you worked on a significant or relevant project showcasing your skills. Okay, so it turns out that is a thing in IT these days. Project section up front, optional but effective. Okay, here's an example. Okay, so you're just pulling out. So it's a glorified version of the relevant professional skills section, right? Like that summary that you would have up front. They're just calling it projects and listing them separate. Okay, so here's some stuff you can you can look at. I mean, I'd recommend to do your own queries on ChatGPT. At least you could start with that and go from there. It's generally pretty accurate for this stuff. But then a lot of this stuff, if you really wanted to know, the best way to find out this and any other idiosyncratic industry-specific information is to do informational interviews. Here's a perfect reason to talk to a hiring manager, for like an IT company that hires developers in the area you want to work. You contact them, you say, I'd very much like to get your expert opinion on, the industry and some of the skill sets that you guys are looking for or that we're going to be needing in the near future. Something like that, and see if you can grab a coffee with that person, learn how to do informational interviews. Apart from the hidden job market as the number one thing I would recommend for, if you've never heard of it, like learn that. That's going to be the most useful to you. The number two skill I would recommend for people is learn how to get and conduct informational interviews with people in your industry. That's your gateway to learn anything at all. Even like super confidential stuff that nobody ever talks about, right? Think of like what benefits there could be sitting down with someone who's in the position that you aspire to be in 20 years. Okay? Think of like if they could answer any question that you might have. You say like, what should I do? What skills are the most needed now? What do you guys see as the most valuable type of experience or knowledge or training, or you know what I mean? Like what's the most valuable work experience you can get? How do you get that experience? That kind of stuff. Like, think of all the stuff you could ask that person that would be useful for you to know. That's what you can do with informational interviews. I've done a ton of them. I've done informational interviews mainly with CEOs. I've done I think a couple hundred in my time with CEOs of other companies that I didn't know, right? It's an incredibly useful thing. So learn how to do this. A lot of people are open to it, and it can open up so many doors for you. Go look up informational interviews. Go onto ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or all these tools. Go learn about them, and then go start doing them. That'll open up so many doors. Tong is back. Tong says, hey, Bill, any tips on how to approach a mock interview to get the most out of it? Have one organized tomorrow, but not sure what's going to happen. I know it's case by case. So you're doing a mock interview tomorrow. You're doing an interview tomorrow, and you're wondering how to approach a mock interview to get the most out of it. Okay. So for people who don't know, a mock interview is a pretend job interview. It's a really, really good way of preparing for job interviews. That's where you don't just prepare by yourself. Like, you do that, but then you do pretend interviews with someone else, right? Where they pretend to be the interviewer and they ask you questions, right? Now, for rich people and for executives, they hire recruiters and things to help them do this. A lot of HR firms provide this service to executives and stuff like that, people that can pay for it, and they'll sit down with you and they'll do lots of practice interviews with you, and then they'll give you feedback, right? For the kind of poor man's version of this is you grab a friend or a family member. Okay, so if you've got siblings or friends or whatever, they're just kind of around, say, hey, I need your help. We're going to do this. You're going to pretend to be an interviewer, and you're going to interview me. And the whole point of this is to give me practice at doing this stuff, right? And you can either give them a list of questions, or you could say, you figure out the questions. Go online, pick the questions you want to ask, and then we'll do this, right? And the idea is that not only is this like a test of your ability to recall your answers and to have your answers prepared, but it also trains you to do this under circumstances where you might be nervous. It might be a little bit awkward doing this with somebody else. And that's the whole point. Because in a real job interview, You're going to be outside of your comfort zone. You're usually going to be on somebody else's turf. You're going to be feeling kind of nervous and uncomfortable. A lot of people, that's where they encounter problems, right? They feel anxiety and they feel a bit on edge. Now, if you practice this with someone else, and you do it over and over and over again, I recommend like 3 or 4 a day, maybe with 3 or 4 different people, right? If you can, for 2 weeks, like Monday to Friday, just 2 weeks in a row. So that's 10 days. That's 30 to 40 mock interviews. At the end of those 10 days, you're going to kick ass. You're going to know the answers to every question backwards, forwards. You can say it in your sleep. You know what I mean? And you're not going to be nervous either. You're going to be used to it. So that's the advantage of these. So if you're not doing this to prepare for job interviews, I think you should. Like, it's something worth considering. It's really helpful. Okay, so Tong hasn't really elaborated, but your question was any tips on how to approach them? No, not really. I mean, it's all good. It's about just rehearsing, Like, I would say mix it up, So, for example, maybe in the beginning, you give the other person a list of the questions. Here, ask me these, And then, after doing that a couple of times, maybe you say, okay, you go and you figure out, like, you come up with the questions you want to ask. So they're now coming up with new questions and they're throwing them at you, right? And that's very valuable too, because once they start doing that, then you get a sense of like how prepared you truly are, When it comes to behavioral interview questions, if you've done it right, you should be able to answer any possible behavioral interview question they ask you, no matter how silly or weird, you'll be able to answer anything. You come with 10 stories that you vetted, that you've rehearsed. And the idea is that no matter what they ask you, whatever question, you're going to pull out one of those 10 stories. You might have to tweak it a little, but any question can be answered with one of those 10 stories, assuming you've like picked a good cross section of different stories, which is what you should have done, right? And then something else that's useful to have is a couple of sort of contingency answers. Maybe you just don't understand the question. You've asked them to repeat it a couple of times, but you still don't understand. You have like a sort of default backup answer where when you don't understand the question, you just say something nice. And that usually gets you out of it, or something that you can't answer, or it's too complicated. You have like a default response for that. Things like this. What to do if the person says something that's like a little bit rude, like how to respond, things like that. And this allows you to practice those. Not getting upset if they ask you something that's maybe a bit silly or you think is kind of, just a dumb question or whatever. It allows you to prepare for all of that stuff, So if you do a bunch of these, just mix it up. That's the only thing I would really say. Does that, hopefully that answers your question there, Tong. But it's a good question. Kojo is here. Kojo says, greetings from Raleigh, North Carolina. My favorite place. If I knew how to say it and I could retain how it's said, then I would like it even more. Yeah, there are 17 people here. We're approaching the 1 hour, 20-minute mark. I could go for another few minutes. Let me know if you guys have any questions about job search or anything else. And I'll be happy to try and give you the best answer I can. And Bob's your uncle. You guys like that expression? Bob's your uncle? Something I haven't mentioned, I don't think today in this live stream, is check out that course. That is the single best bang for the buck way of learning business. Business, of course, being the scientific study of how to make money. Very, very useful thing for a variety of different reasons. So if you want to have some of those skills, check that out. Link in the description. Tong says, makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Awesome. Right on. Yeah. So hopefully, today, if you have been here for the long haul, you've gotten out of this, hopefully, the importance of learning about the hidden job market. Okay. We demonstrated on using things like ChatGPT. I mean, this doesn't come from me. This is like common knowledge. This is where all the jobs are, you know? You know what I mean? 20% are posted, 80% are hidden. It makes a hell of a lot of sense to go after those 80%. That's where all the good jobs are too. So that's kind of the number one recommendation I'd have, especially for younger people that haven't been exposed to this, right? Secondly, learn things like informational interviews, incredible skill. You could learn anything. Imagine being able to sit down with someone who's in a position that you aspire to be in by the end of your career. What would you ask them? What information would you want to get from them? They can give you like shortcuts to get right there, and tell you exactly what's important and, how to get that, you know what I mean? And why it's important and, all this kind of stuff. They can fill in your awareness of different things, right? So being able to do informational interviews, being able to get them and then being able to conduct them, very, very important. A great real life skill that will help you in your career. So learn all about that stuff. Now, if you want to learn about all that stuff with me, it's in that course right here. I did a video a month ago called How I'd Get a Job. It's 45 minutes long, and I go through 11 different methods of getting a job and basically explain each of the 11 and then give you my take on them. So check that out if that's interesting to you. Yeah. There are 23 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. I got hate for saying that in my earlier videos. You guys know that? Some of the more popular videos on my channel to this day are some of my earlier ones, and I'd always end a video saying, you're awesome. And I got a lot of hate for that. I got people saying, you don't know me, you arrogant prick, you think you know me. It's like, it just goes to show you, no matter what you put out to the world, somebody is going to respond negatively. That's just how it goes, You could do art where you post like, beautiful pictures of a bunch of flowers that say, be nice to each other, and you'll get hate for it. You know what I mean? That's what I've noticed. It's a tiny minority of people, but they're still there. Every day I actually get comments, really nasty kind of things. That just comes with the territory. That's how it goes. So, yeah. Okay. If there are no other questions, then I will probably start winding this down. Tong says, I will make sure to try out my handshake buzzer and different ties. Yeah. Well, we talked about this before, I think. You got the squirting tie, right? Which is always good for a laugh. When you first meet people and you shake their hand, you get the squirting tie. It squirts right in their face. Or the exploding tie. Always popular at meetings. It's just like a regular tie, except it explodes. And, livens things up. It's fun for all. So you got several options there. I haven't seen the handshake buzzer. That's something I've seen in cartoons from the 50s. I haven't seen one in real life. I haven't seen documentary footage of one. I've just seen like cartoons of it, right? So I don't know if that makes it a thing or it's real. I think if you see it in a cartoon, it probably means it's from the 1930s. I think that's how that usually works. It was a different time back then. Can you imagine if you had one of those on today? I mean, the amount of people that would get offended, their heads would probably explode, if you did that and didn't put any disclaimers on it. You didn't warn people, just like, it'll be interesting. Maybe that's the reason to do it. So you go ahead and do that, Tong, and let me know how it goes. Okay, you come back and you tell us how it went. Unless, if you're still free, at that point. I don't even know what country you're in, so that also makes it even more interesting. Because I think you'd have some pretty interesting reactions around the world to doing that. I mean, if that was a YouTube video, I'd watch that, put it that way. Okay, I think that's pretty much the end of the questions. So it's Friday, the weekend is coming. I don't care if you're looking for a job. I don't care if you're between jobs. Try and force yourself to do something fun on the weekend. Recharge the battery. If you are doing job search, you're between jobs right now, you need some downtime. You need to invest in yourself so that you can get back on the horse Monday morning and kick ass. That's kind of what I think you need to do. So force yourself to do something fun, even if you don't feel like it. Sometimes when we're between jobs, it can be an extremely stressful time. If that's what you're feeling, you're normal. You're a normal human being if that's what you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with you. That's just exactly how everybody feels put under those conditions. In order to get through it, you need to be able to do it for the long haul. And in order to get some longevity, you need to have some downtime. So force yourself to do something fun this weekend, recharge the battery. I will be back on Monday. If you have more questions, I will be live streaming kind of the same time. Like this is the afternoon in North America where I am. So come back and we can talk about it. Valentina says, "You are awesome, Bill. Thank you for what you're doing." You're absolutely welcome, Valentina. Thank you for saying so. That's very kind of you. And you're awesome too. Never forget that. And Theodoro says, "Have a good weekend." You too, Theodoro. So special thanks to Theodoro, Valentina, Tong, Kojo, V-Rep, Dials War. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. I apologize. Swift Sloth, everybody else. You guys take care. We'll see you on Monday. Have a good weekend.